All right, we're in the shop and we're analyzing a very interesting special cymbal that I have on loan from the great drummer Tim Metz. I was talking to him about a project that I was commissioned to do that was related to a cymbal that he owns, that he's posted videos on his YouTube channel. And he was kind enough to send me the cymbal so that I could actually have it in person to analyze and use as a reference for this custom commission that I'm working on. So the cymbal in question is this guy right here. It is a 19.5 old K. I'm going to try to get the stamp to focus, and any of you stamp nerds out there, tell me what you think that stamp is. But we have a very fascinating cymbal that has all these rivet holes in it. It's got this interesting lathing in it, and a really, really interesting shape. This cymbal was definitely, when it was made, was a dud. And I say that because they put all the rivet holes in. It's got these perfectly, factory done rivet holes, 10 equidistant in the center of the cymbal, 5 equidistant out at the edge, 15 rivet holes. It was full of rivets. Tim said that when he got it, it had all the rivets or most of the rivets in it. And they usually do that to kind of mask the sound of an ugly cymbal. So if, cymbal didn't sound all that great, or it had weird tones or weird hums, they just put a bunch of rivets in it, send it out. And the cool thing about this cymbal is, although it might have been a dud when it was made, it is certainly not a dud now. Time has done wonders to this cymbal. I would imagine when it was made, it would be horribly out of control, wild, lots of hums and tones. But with approximately 60 plus years of age, the alloy is hardened. It's gotten more brittle. The hums and tones are now buried in the mix of the sound. And what you have is this really dry, controlled, yet chaotic cymbal that's incredibly complex, musical, and nuanced. So let's take a listen to how it sounds. So, the shape. It has this very, very pronounced flange that starts out right about where the rivet holes start, and it just dives pretty quick. Beyond that, it's flat. It's just pretty much just a plateau all the way up to the bell, which I talk about in some other videos, that this is not what you want from a new cymbal. You do not want it to have flat portions or dipping portions, because that's going to really tend to hum and tend to be out of control with overtones and notes that aren't musical, or at the very least they kind of stick out like a sore thumb in the overall sound of the cymbal and make it very hard to play, especially with acoustic instruments. But the age, like I said, has really taken those hums and sort of just buried them in the mix. And I really have to play with the SD2 Bolero stick, the big beefy maple stick with the round tip. I have to play that up near the bell to really get those tones to even come out. And they're there for sure when you play with this stick. You have this kind of explosion of sound and these almost notes that are a little bit annoying. But you bring the Bolero tip out near the edge where the flange starts, and you have this contained, controlled sound. With something a little bit more standard, like a smaller acorn tip. You have this really nice articulate sound, but it's complex. It's not clean and smooth. It's like wild but contained. It really is a beautiful sound. So that gets me to the reason for this video, which is that I'm going to be making some cymbals that are aimed at this sound. I'm going to be taking some completely flat blanks that I've, only have like a little divot pressed in the center where I find the center point and press a little divot. And I'm going to be scratching out the border of my bell, hammering the body, edging it, and then aiming the shape, the weight, the taper at this sound. I'm going to have to do some creative problem solving where I kind of adjust some of the parameters so that I can get to a sound that's similar to this cymbal as it is now. Because if I was to just do everything to copy this cymbal exactly as it is, without accounting for the fact that it's got a crazy patina and it's had a lot of age, then I'm going to end up with a really wild cymbal that's not really going to get super close to this. And it's only going to be like this cymbal in, 50 or 60 years. So I'm going to be tweaking some things. I'm going to be adding an artificial patina. I'm going to be working with taper in an interesting way. This cymbal, to me, kind of feels like it might be a little bit reverse tapered, which means that it's got a thinner portion near the bell, and it actually thickens as it gets to the edge. That could be another factor that would cause the cymbal to be more contained and not have as much spread. It's like almost like the center portion is acting to kind of deaden the sustain, and the outer edge, the heaviness of it, is kind of keeping things restricted in a way. It is a thinner cymbal, 1,680 grams for a 19.5. I don't know if I said that before, but that's the dimensions and the weight. That is, on the thin side. So given all of that, we have a very unique, interesting cymbal, and I'm excited to see what I can do. It should be a fun challenge. So I'll show a little bit of the process, but not all of it, and we'll jump back on when I have a round one update on me trying to make some tributes to this amazing old K. All right, so I have hammered the bells on 3 rides here, and I was just kind of basically just pulling this reference cymbal over to kind of look at the side profile and see that I'm getting generally in the right space. I'm aiming for a little bit lower. I want to have my peak height where I want it to be, so the tallest point, so that I can go ahead and drill the hole. But as far as how it curves out to the edge of the bell, I'm wanting to keep that a little bit on the lower side so I can build it out. Because once I get through the initial lathing is when I'm really going to look in depth at the way that this reference cymbal bumps and lumps in different parts of the bell, so that I can kind of go in and build out the irregularity to the bells. But that's going to be after the phase 1 of the lathing. So one thing that's different about this that I normally do, I usually scratch the top line here and hammer on the top to give my border, and then I go from the underside and hammer it out like here. normally what I'll do is I'll flip the cymbal inside out. And at this point, I'll come over on top of my anvil and I'll bend it in a uniform way all the way around the cymbal. So here, then move it here, move it here. And what this does is it makes my bell border, my transition, my bridge, as people call it, sharper. So it's not as smooth and flowing into the body. It's a little bit more hard. And this is going to make the bell sound a little bit more separated as opposed to integrated. The more I bend and the more I hammer on that line to really create this like hard angle, the more I do that, the more the separated the sound is going to be. However, this cymbal here has a bit more of a smooth transition, kind of like flows into the body here. So this has a bit more of an integrated sound. So where you hit the bell, you hear the body activate. And if I were to take a stick, you know, a lot of the cymbal is being activated when I hit the bell. And I'm hearing a lot of the hums that come from that flat portion here because of that smooth transition. So on these bells, I'm not bending to get a sharp border. I'm wanting that smooth transition. And I can always go back in later and do it if I need a little bit more separation from the bell to the body. But that can happen later on in the process. So phase 2, now that the bells are hammered, is to start hammering the body. Now, the worst thing I could do is hammer the full shape of this cymbal into each of these cymbals because the edges are ragged and it's not a perfect circle. So I really need to have a perfect circle before I go into to give myself the real structure. So the initial hammering on this is just going to be to get a low shape, and that low shape, immediately I'll take it to the lathe and edge it so that it's on the diameter dimension that I want, so that then I can take it and start dealing with how I'm going to exactly go about hammering in this profile shape to the cymbals and giving it that curve. And we'll talk about all that when the time comes. So I'll catch you in a day or so when the shapes of these cymbals are hammered. So the smallest one I'm going for right on the 19.5 dimension that the original Old K has. And then I've got this second one here at 22 inches and the last one at 24 inches. There's a couple little quirks with these blanks that I'll talk about in a minute. But just to show you guys up close, we have hammering on the top and on the bottom. And this has given me a nice flat shape, low shape, which allowed me to go in and do the edging. So the next step is going to be for me to remove the crust. So a little bit of lathing on the top and on the bottom to remove the crust, expose the raw bronze. And then from there, I'm going to be doing the major shaping session to get the profile shapes into a similar zone as the original Old K. On the bigger ones here, especially the 24, the bell formation, this is kind of the blank itself and the bell formation, and it basically pulled the profile into a taller shape than I was wanting. I wanted to have this nice and low and flat, but as you can see, maybe, it's hard with a bigger size, but it's got a much taller shape to it. So that doesn't mean that this cymbal can't be used to aim at that same sound, but it just means I'm going to have it's just going to be a different vibe. And I have some options though. So if I decide I want to scrap the idea of having a 24-inch version of the cymbal, I can cut the cymbal down and go all the way down to maybe the 19.5 diameter, which that will, because I'm cutting down dimension, that will lower the shape and get it into a place where it might be workable for me to take it and get a similar profile shape. This just happens sometimes based on if the blank itself is a little bit bold, if it's not super flat, if it's kind of got a bowl to it already, then when you add the bell into it, it can just shoot the profile taller with less hammering. So this one is to be decided. I might keep it as a 24, and I might make it a little bit of a taller version of this Old K, and it might just be kind of a variation on a theme. But I also might get to the point after some lathing where I think, you know what, let's go ahead and cut the dimension down to a smaller size so that we can really aim at the old K shape, the exact shape that it has. The 22 came out exactly like I wanted it to. Nice and flat and low. So this one's going to be great. So like I said, all of them are going to get lathing. One last thing I'll mention is the weights on these. The 22-inch is at 2,540 grams. The 24-inch is at 2,940 grams. And then the 19.5 is at 2,030 grams. So we're in a place where I'm going to need to remove around a couple hundred grams on each blank to get it sort of within the zone of the reference cymbal. So I've got room to shave weight off, get a taper in, and then especially get that crazy pin lathing in. So yeah, we're on track. And the next time I hop on here, you're going to see freshly shaved bronze, and I will have done the hammering rounds to get the shape where I want it. And then from there, we're going to be able to dial into exactly how the sounds are coming out and what I'm going to do to make my final tweaks to get these tributes in a good place.